In today's video, I'm going to be giving a big update on my custom aquarium in the back here. This is the 135-gallon custom aquarium that has peacocks and haps from Lake Malawi. I've had a problem with my light on this tank, and I'm going to explain that a little bit, as well as show an awesome new mounting system that I have for these lights. It's really going to make this tank look awesome and stand out in my fish room. I'm also going to give a quick update on some of the other equipment and a spotlight on some of my favorite fish in this tank, as there's been a lot of growth and coloring up. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So this 135-gallon custom aquarium has been set up for about 7 months now. There's been a lot of really cool updates, especially with my fish and how they've grown and colored up. I'm going to spotlight a few of my favorite species in this tank in just a minute, but as you can see with the previous setup, I did have an issue with my light. The light was 66 inches long, and originally I planned on mounting it with brackets over the tank, but because custom aquariums are built like tanks, the aluminum brace around the top brim was just too thick for the braces of the typical AquaIllumination lights. So I tried the next best thing, which was putting the braces on the outside of the light, but as you can see, there's a small dip in the middle because the light was just too long, and these braces are really only meant for some of the shorter AquaIllumination blades. I even talked with the folks over at AquaIllumination, and they said that this setup with the light having a slight bend in the middle isn't exactly what's supposed to be intended, but the light would still function and do just fine. It was really just my preference with how the light looked above the tank. But before we get into the solution for this new mounting system that I have, let's check out some of the fish. So in this tank is a mix of peacocks and haps from Lake Malawi. The haps in this tank are more on the smaller end. They're not the big predatory type that my brother Alec has, but some of my favorite common haps include the Madoka white lips, which has the protruding white lips that are really recognizable and stand out in the tank. I also love the blue dolphin. I have 2 of them in here. These guys still have a lot of room to grow, even though they're approaching about 4, maybe 4.5 inches now, and they're looking great. I also have a deep water hap, which was about 1 inch long when I put him in this tank. He's definitely 3 inches or so, and he's starting to look great and put on some size. He's done just fine in this tank. I also have this star sapphire, which is about 4 inches, maybe 4.5, and it's really cool blue coloration, but he looks like he's just about to change color in his color pattern. It's a very unique fish. They start to get this metallic white chipping along their body, which looks really cool when they are adults. And then I definitely have to talk about the 2 most colorful haps probably in this tank, which are the Z-Rock. This guy has awesome yellow color on his forehead and along his fins. This guy stands out. He's probably one of the longest fish in this tank. And then you have the OB Fry-Rai. Fry-Rai are usually solid blue with some white fins, but this guy's an OB, and I really like his color patterns. He definitely stands out with that blue and orangish pink coloration coming through. But then when it comes to the peacocks, some of my favorites are definitely the Lemon Jake. That bright yellow with some blue, and that wide tail fin is really cool. The Sunshine Peacock is super bright and yellow. I love the contrast that those 2 fish bring to this tank. The Dragon Blood brings a great pop of red color, and he's one of the bigger peacocks that I have. He almost has a little nuchal hump now. But speaking of a big peacock, the tank boss of this tank is definitely the red shoulder. He is the biggest fish in terms of girth and probably just overall size in this tank. Great color pattern. He has a small nuchal hump as well. Just an awesome fish. Pretty aggressive, so I could use a different tank boss someday, but I do really like this guy. He's awesome. And then there's the Nagara Flametail, and this guy is just awesome. I love the color pattern in his tail. One of my favorite peacocks of all time. I've always really liked them, and their name is pretty cool. But even with some of that growth and awesome color that's starting to come in, there are a few that still have a lot of room to grow. I mentioned the Deepwater Hap has a lot of room to grow. The Blue Dolphins, but also the Taiwan Reef. This guy has put on a lot of size. He's probably tripled in size, but he's still pretty silver and gray, and he will get some awesome orangish red color and even some blues, which will be really cool. And then there are some other peacocks that are still pretty drab color, but they are reaching a good size, and they should be coloring up here any day now. So a lot of exciting updates. This tank has really matured into one that I love. So the last thing I'll say about this tank is just the rockscape has really looked good with some of the algae that has grown on some of the rocks. It's really made it look more natural. It's actually a sign of a healthy aquarium when you do have some algae in it. It pulls out some nitrates from the tank. I also have an actual algae scrubber in the sump of this tank, and both the algae in the tank and in the algae scrubber have done a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of nitrates in this tank. I only do water changes maybe once every 3 to 4 weeks, which is probably only 25% or so of what I typically would do in a tank like this. It's been a really good option since I can't really have live plants with these guys since they would destroy them all. So it makes for a pretty cool element to this tank. So that's just an update on the equipment and the fish and the escape, just how the tank overall has been doing. But now the most exciting part of the video is the new lighting system, which is already on the tank. I can say it went smoothly, but I'll go ahead and roll some of the footage I had of that, and then we'll show a little bit of the comparison of before and after. So I'm going to attempt to explain how I'm mounting this here. I have 2 AI blades, as you can see. I have 2 black mounting brackets, and I have already installed those with this piece here. This wire will hang, so I just need to get the rest of the wire, which will go through the top here and up to the ceiling. And then up at the ceiling, the anchors are these screws, which turned out to be a little less intuitive than I thought. It's actually kind of complicated and confusing. There are a few different ways that you can do this based on the mounting kit. Basically, I need to drill a hole in the ceiling so that the screw and the anchor can go through the ceiling, and then this part will open, and then I need to tighten the screw, and this white piece will be touching the ceiling, the drop ceiling that I have, and then this piece here will be the anchor from the wire, which will then attach directly and screw on. So this is the wire that will be hanging from the ceiling, and the connection is this piece here, which screws onto the mount that's going to be up at the ceiling. Hopefully I get it all right in the first try because I don't want to be drilling a bunch of holes in my ceiling. The hope is that I drill the hole in the right spot. I just push this through, and then these prongs open up, and once that happens I can screw everything into place. Once all that's done, I will put the wires hanging from the ceiling into the piece there, and it will hold it hopefully about 5 inches or so above my tank and look awesome. I think it'll look great and be well worth the effort here once it's above the tank, but it is a bit confusing just getting this all ready to go. Okay, so here are the 2 lights and kind of how they will look. Sorry if you can hear my sump gurgling. I need to clean out my return pump real quick after all this, but the lights here will be hanging from these brackets. I will basically measure this a spot directly above on the ceiling, but maybe like an inch, maybe even 2 inches closer to the front, because I definitely want this light to be as close to the brim as possible. So I got the brackets installed in the ceiling. I have the wires hanging. Now I just have to measure out the wires length to the actual brackets on the light, lift the light up, which I don't know how I'm going to do on my own, and we're going to get these hopefully turned on this video, so stay tuned. Okay, so I got both lights on and they look pretty good. I might adjust the height, but in the meantime I'm going to add this new AI blade to the app so that I can control both. Since I'm using 2 really nice lights, probably going to turn them both down pretty low once it's all set up. Okay, so this is what I have for the lighting. I have a ramp up 2 hours, a ramp down at 10 p.m. to midnight, and then the lighting is very low, just 12% blue, 3% red, 13% cool white. I think that makes it look really cool. It's not too bright for the fish, but also there's definitely a nice shimmer, which I really like about these lights. So I absolutely love these new hanging lights on this tank. I think it provides a really cool element. Similar to my 150 that has the AI primes, the lighting itself really make the tank stand apart. And I really only meant to have one blade on this tank, but with the lighting issues on the mounts that I mentioned before, it really just didn't make sense. And with the hanging system, I think the two lights just look so much better than if I just had one AI blade hanging up here. Obviously, this is a higher end, pretty expensive lighting option since I have two AI blades on here and they're both 66 inches long. But you could go a cheaper route and do something like this. But I do like the AI blades because they're really customizable. The app's pretty easy to use. It is the same app with my AI primes on my other tank. The lights themselves are very strong. I have the percentages super low. And one of my favorite things about a higher end lighting option like this is the shimmer it creates in the water that you can kind of see on the substrate and rocks. I love that in a tank that has good surface agitation with a really nice light, especially one that's suspended above the tank like this. So in person, I really love this lighting schedule that I have and the percents I pick. I don't know how well it picks up on camera. The video you see now is just my regular camera that I use the most when I'm just vlogging, and I think it looks pretty good. And next I'll show footage. This is my GoPro, which might pick up the color just a little bit different. And lastly, this is just footage from my iPhone. So hopefully that gives a pretty good overview of what this looks like in real life. I'm really happy with the updates on this tank. I think it's really makes it stand apart from the rest of the tanks in my fish room. So I hope you enjoyed seeing the update on this 135 and the new lighting system. I'm really pumped to have it installed and ready to go. If you have any questions about how I set this up or any of the light settings, let me know down in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.